Welcome to the Everything Podcast. In this episode, I'm going to be looking at several releases from the War Doctor Rises range for Big Finish, and these releases have one of them came out in 2024, the other came out in 2025. I am not covering all of the War Doctor Rises releases because I've not listened to half of them, so I'm going to only focus on the ones that I've listened to. So without further ado, I am recording this episode on the 16th of February 2026. Please go and check out my War Doctor Begins recaps if you haven't already, because they kind of lead into this series. So the War Doctor Begins, before I get into the War Doctor Begins range, was kind of 1 hour stories, whereas when the episode rebranded into the War Doctor Rises, the decision was made to make it one long 3 hour story. It's like a movie, basically. And the first in the War Doctor Rises range, and I have listened to this one, is the War Doctor Rises Morbius the Mighty, which was released in August 2024, so a bit later on in the year than usual first War Doctor releases, but that does change. But I think just for this one. And here's the synopsis. The War Doctor has been forced out of the fight, and the battle has moved on in his absence. There are new powers, new anomalies, and new excuses from him to keep his distance. With only Cora's nurse to keep him company on the forest planet of Lull, the War Doctor is content to leave his old life behind. But something is stirring in the depths of a twisted planet. An old embittered foe harbours a terrible grudge against the Doctor, and when a chance encounter gives this enemy the chance to escape, no one is safe in his quest for vengeance. From the deep depths of the Storm Valley, Morbius will rise. I should mention that the writer of Morbius the Mighty is Tim Foley, and I'll get to that in a second. But this episode release was recorded between the 11th and 13th of December 2023 and 8th of February 2024, and does star Jonathan Carley as the War Doctor, Nicholas Briggs as the Daleks, and Samuel West as Morbius. That's the main cast. So before I let you know my thoughts on the War Doctor Rises Morbius the Mighty, here's the trailer.
Great men fall, and the greater still will rise again.
From Big Finish Productions, The War Doctor Rises, Morbius the Mighty.
It's an old... It can't be. No galleon. These are the ships the Time Lords used to... What's it doing out here?
Wait, please. Hear what I have to say at least. I've come a long way, and it concerns the valley.
The great tear in time that peaks at a point before the war?
It's more than a tear. It's a weeping wound, and it should be avoided at all costs.
Who's there?
These valley forces are a mystery to us even now.
Hey, what are you?
The Doctor. He is out there, but he feels strange, sickened.
Temporal toxemia. I'm a Time Lord who can't travel in time.
3 years he's been like this.
My blood bubbles and boils if I get even a whiff of the fourth dimension.
Lord Morbius, the living legend. What a pleasure it is to meet you.
They are the Foregone, and I am their king.
All ships have locked onto the target, sir.
Now we have the perfect view.
Fire on the ship! The Doctor will surrender! On your knees and worship me.
For I am the General, the true President, the rightful victor of your tiny world. I am Morbius, Lord of all.
Big Finish, for the love of stories.
That was the trailer for the War Doctor Rises Morbius the Mighty, which I will talk about in a second. But actually this story is a sequel to another story featuring Morbius, that being Dark Gallifrey Morbius, which I will focus on in a future episode, so I'm not going to mention it too much, but kind of Tim Foley wrote that. That's kind of where the idea of writing a War Doctor story featuring Morbius came from. It's a 3 hour story, as I said, this one, so it kind of is one long story, hence why the synopsis isn't split up. There was loads of confrontations between the War Doctor and Morbius. Because it is 3 hours long, it's not got to be rushed through the three different episodes, so it gives them time to to explore that relationship, because obviously the War Doctor is a very different incarnation. The Doctor is kind of more aggressive and more kind of less forgiving, should we say, whereas, and obviously Morbius is not a nice person, and especially when he faces the War Doctor, he just is, kind of taunts him a little bit. But as we heard a bit in the trailer, the War Doctor is now unable to travel in time, and kind of in the War Doctor's life, he's been stuck there for 3 years, so it is quite different, which kind of, I think it's a way to kind of put the War Doctor Rises as a starting point, rather than kind of and changing the name of the set makes of the range makes sense. Going from Begins to Rises kind of is the natural progression of that. Now on to the other release. Now there have been some other releases before I get to the other one I'm going to talk about. So I'm going to talk about them briefly. So we've got the War Doctor Rises Unknown Soldiers, which was released in December 2024, which I haven't listened to, so I won't be talking about that. And we also have the War Doctor Rises Fallen Heroes, which was released in May 2025, which I haven't listened to. But the most recent War Doctor Rises release I have listened to, and that's being Cybergene, written by Jonathan Morrison. Like all of the other War Doctor Rises releases, is one long story across 3 episodes, and has the following synopsis. As the conflicts between Gallifrey and Skaro rages, the Cybermen are gone from the universe until now. The War Doctor finds himself in a world ravaged by battle, where soldiers are kept alive by grimly familiar methods. As time is manipulated, the dead no longer stay dead, and a horrifying evolution begins. Seeking answers across multiple worlds, and in a long-dead cyber tomb, the Doctor uncovers the terrible truth. The ultimate cyber form is coming to join the Time War. Episode 1 is titled Crucible, Episode 2 is titled Firebreak, and Episode 3 is titled Spooker. This set was recorded between the 24th and 26th of March 2025, and stars Jonathan Carley as the War Doctor, Nicholas Briggs as the Cybermen, Mitra Deligi as Nesta, which is kind of the War Doctor's companion of sorts in this set, as well. That's it, kind of. There isn't much more of that. So before I let you know my thoughts on the War Doctor Rises Cybergene, here's the trailer.
From Big Finish Productions, Doctor Who, The War Doctor Rises, Cybergene.
Earth-type planet.
You look like a soldier to me.
I am. But from a different war, I'm not your enemy.
Now you mention it, I can't remember a time before the war. The enemy... The enemy.
You wanted to see the enemy, Doctor. Well, there they are.
His body is required. All bodies are required.
Resurrected. With stronger bodies, resistant to pain, to disease, to damage. The dead are an abundant resource, and given the lack of new recruits, I had no choice.
Identify Doctor.
What's left of the original person after they've been resurrected?
Destroy.
Because what you're doing, it's been done before.
Deactivate preserve brain. Fix.
The next phase of their evolution.
What?
Stasis. Resupply.
That's your big idea? Get the Cybermen to fight the Daleks on your behalf.
Not just any Cybermen, Doctor.
You belong to us. You will become like us.
You know my ways.
Big Finish, for the love of stories.
There!
What?
Something ran into that shadow. A rat, I think.
A rat? Oh dear.
That was the trailer for the War Doctor Rises Cybergene, and because it was only released about 2 months ago for when I'm recording this episode, I do remember quite a lot of this. And basically this release is meant to answer the question, what were the Cybermen doing during the Time War? Because the Time War, up until the release of Cybergene, was focused on the Time Lords and the Daleks, never kind of where were the Cybermen during all this, and kind of what happens, and throughout this set, kind of what happens is kind of the Cybermen evolve and change, and because kind of the idea of Cybermen is wherever humans exist, or people that can be converted, who are able to be converted, Cybermen will always exist, basically, and kind of people that are trying to do it to save the world actually end up destroying it accidentally. So it is kind of quite interesting. It is nice to have finally a story featuring the War Doctor against the Cybermen. There is another incarnation of the Doctor that gets that for the first time. You might know what I'm talking about, you might not, but I'll save that for a future episode. But yeah, it is nice to see the War Doctor against the Cybermen, because obviously in his only TV appearance today, the Doctor, it was not, the Cybermen weren't in it at all. And we've heard a lot of the War Doctor versus the Daleks, especially in the War Doctor Begins range. So it is nice to kind of step away from that and see where have Jonathan Carley's War Doctor against the Cybermen. It's really good. Now, I really enjoyed the kind of the different amounts of Cybermen and going, oh, I recognise that voice. Because the Cybermen, like the Daleks, they have very infamous voices. So even if you've never watched or listened to a Doctor Who audio or watched it, you know who the Cybermen are, who the Daleks are. You know the blue box is the TARDIS rings, and the Doctor is an alien. Like it's one of those types of things that you just know. But yeah, kind of this, as I said, this was the most recent War Doctor Rises release, but the War Doctor Rises range continues into 2026. Continuing with the War Doctor Rises Fear of the Light, which is released in May 2026 with the following synopsis. Fleeing from the Daleks, the Doctor sends a distress call in desperate need of rescue. It's answered by one of his oldest friends and deadliest foes, the Rani. In the midst of the Time War, the Doctor must now consider the unthinkable. Can he set their aside and work with the Rani to change the future of the universe? This set was recorded between the 3rd and the 5th of December 2025, so not that long ago, and is a set. War Doctor Rises is obviously one story, this time written by Rashana Patel, but does star Jonathan Carley as the War Doctor, Siobhan Redmond as the Rani, and Nicholas Briggs as the Daleks. I'm not going to focus on this story too much because I've talked about it in a recent episode, kind of my how I know the Rani and kind of all of that stuff. But yeah, this was a nice surprise because we weren't quite sure if Big Finish could use the Rani with how soon it'd been used in the TV show, but obviously they can. But yeah, that comes out in May 2026, but that's not the only War Doctor Rises release of 2026, because the War Doctor, currently titled The War Doctor Rises 6, will be released in December 2026. So we've got at least another 2 box sets of the War Doctor Rises, and who knows what after that. But yeah, that's kind of it. So if you're not fans of the War Doctor, you'll be glad to know this is the last War Doctor episode. I'm moving on to another range in the next episode, and you'll find out what that is when you check it out. But before that, let me know what you thought about all the releases I talked about in this episode, as well with if you've listened to any of the releases, what you thought of them, my recap. If you didn't, you can put your thoughts on all of those in the comments below, and I will see you in a future episode of the podcast. See you then. Goodbye.